Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the PHNX Hockey Podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah, and I'm joined by Craig today because Petey is making the long trek.
He made it
to
right?
Florida. No, he's in his connection. We might hear from him a little later. Get some travel updates. No direct flights to Fort Lauderdale, I guess, Craig, but happy to have you filling in today. I think he's flying to Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, well, that's good. That's a little bit closer. Maybe that's where they're staying in Fort Lauderdale. Still not close to Sunrise, but...
Yeah, no, not at all.
I hope you make it, Petey.
Yeah, Petey.
Also, I'm confused.
You might be watching.
Which show is this? Because I've been on a lot this
week. I know,
week,
this is Craig's third show this week. Craig, the new PHNX Cardinals beat writer, but also a man who wears many hats over at PHNX, including... continuing to talk hockey, which we're very grateful for.
Very much so.
Yeah, so we have this is going to be a jam-packed show. This one might be a little long.
Is she? She's not visible.
No, and that's okay. We'll wait till later. Let's wait till later.
No, I don't know how to tell.
We'll wait till later. Okay. We have a lot to go over today. We had the chance earlier this week to catch up with Utah General Manager Bill Armstrong. He joined the show. Only right that he'd be the first guest of the PHNX Hockey Show, as he was probably the most recurring guest on the PHNX Coyotes show. You and I are going to talk.
Platfan's on the phone, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So he's going to call in right now just to make his case. We're going to talk a lot about Utah today. I know that really bothers some people, but after the GMBA interview, Craig and I are going to have a very honest conversation about the Utah management structure, about some of the hurdles that Utah has to face, both from a hockey standpoint and from just a logistical standpoint. We'll talk a little bit more about the Tucson Roadrunners. We now know the ticket prices for the Mullet games we'll go over as well. And then we'll finish things off by talking about the Stanley Cup Final because, well, Petey and I did a preview on our audio-only episode this week. We want to get Craig's thoughts. Craig came with some really interesting statistics, and we'll meet a new friend of Craig's as well. So
thank you for saying Stanley Cup Final singular.
Yes.
Mark Lazarus really ingrained that in me, that it's singular.
But
it's one of the times where singular is okay.
It's the NBA Finals, but it's the Stanley Cup Final. It's very confusing.
Interesting branding.
Yes, very interesting. But first things first, listen, we said that GMBA was coming on the show. Mixed reaction on Twitter. A lot of people saying really interested to hear what he has to say. A lot of Coyotes fans will be following Utah. A lot of people wanted nothing to do with this, so they're probably not even watching. I don't even need to address those people. But, it wasn't anybody in the hockey department's choice to move to Utah, Craig.
Well, so. I mean, I'm interested to hear what he has to say, too, because I wasn't part of this interview.
That is
just
true.
You and Petey. I was out at Cardinals. Or ASU, or I can't remember where I was that day. But you guys were working hard. You got GMBA on the show, so...
Yeah, without further ado, let's hear from Utah General Manager Bill Armstrong. We are very excited to welcome, and it's going to take some getting used to for me, Utah GM Bill Armstrong. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Listen, you guys are one of the best shows. You guys had such a great impact on us, and it got our message out to the fans. It was such a positive thing. I know Craig's not here today on the show, but he's done a great job with you guys, and you guys are absolutely 100% one of our favorites to kind of come on and do this show. And listen, we go way back, and we've the Christmas special at my house. It won't be the same.
Let's start it off with that. Like, we know how busy this time of year is for you anyway. Yeah. Like, just generally getting ready for the draft. But now you got to throw in a move in that. How are you settling in, and how is the move going for you personally?
Well, I can just tell you when I learned our fate, I looked out into the patio out back, and our two Frenchies were actually upside down sunbathing, and I thought to myself, you two have no idea what's coming your way, but you're going to be cold. You better enjoy that sun now. So, Yeah, the move, it's not easy on the staff. There's always difficulties in doing that, and that's a tough place to move out of. You're leaving Arizona, and it feels lost at times. And I don't think it's really clicked in. At the same time, we're really excited about coming here. The welcome of the fans, the generosity of the people. It's been. They always say Utah shows up, and they do. They're so excited about getting us out here and getting our team. It's an incredible response. So we're super excited and very grateful for the fans out here. They've taken it to a new level.
Well, the draft, it's less than a month away. So where are you and your scouting staff? I know you're doing scouting meetings all this week and last week. Where are you in the scouting process as of today?
Yeah, well, we're right now we're at the point where the list is complete, and you're obviously really excited about kind of learning who the players are in your area. So that's a huge thing for the staff, and the list. Now the two head guys take the list back and kind of let it soak in for a bit, and really kind of just absorb on who we're going to get, and then I'll touch base with those guys at the end of the week a little bit more. And obviously, we've got to go to the combines, the NHL combine, and interview the players and see that. And then we have our own combine, and then we really beat the list up over the next 2 weeks before the draft. But it's an exciting time because you can kind of sense and kind of see who you're going to get.
It's funny, though, because last year we talked about that first 5 picks was kind of where that tier was for last year's draft. How would you describe this year's draft? Is it top heavy? We've heard a lot of big defensemen are up in this year's draft. How would you describe it coming into this year's draft?
Well, I would say there's some unique players. I think that there's a consensus in the NHL about the number 1 pick, but after that, I think it's a wide open draft. I think when you guys cover it, you're going to be surprised at where the draft goes to, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, I didn't see the guy in that range." I think it's wide open, to be honest with you, and it has a lot to do with what you talked about. Some of the big D-men that are available in the draft, the fact that you have you know, every team in the top 10 probably has a different list order. So it's going to be all over the place. And there's going to be some surprises in the top 10. And when I say surprises, they're surprises to the media. They're not surprises to the teams that are in the top 10. You see guys on the mock drafts, around 15 or 16 or 17, and everybody's like, yeah, they have those guys back there because nobody wants to admit that they're going in the top 5. So I think there's a whole bunch of there's going to be a lot of surprises in the top 10.
Talk about surprises. Like, you did that to us last year. Leah had spent weeks coming up with names to fill in the top 30, and then you guys,
it was like the one name I didn't have.
And agreed, though. Other scouts said that, oh yeah, he was there, but clearly we're media and we had no idea. So you did it to us last year too.
Yeah, the goodness is when we picked it last year, we went up and announced it, and there was like dead silence in the whole stadium. Like nobody's like, "Huh? Who'd they pick? Like, who's that guy?" So, that's we're able to do that, because of where our fan base and that. If you're in a city sometimes that that's really into the draft, like the Torontos and the Montreals, and sometimes you see them leak it to they leak it almost to the mock drafts, so that way when they pick the guy there, it's not such a surprise. So that's good for us though, because we can usually tell who they're going to pick up there, because we can usually read the report, read all the newspaper articles, and we can see who they're pushing, because they don't want to get to the point where they're picking at 2 or 3, and all of a sudden this guy's on the radar and they pick him, and it's a surprise to their fan base and they get roasted the next day in there. But we didn't really have those issues in Arizona, so we were able to just to kind of pick who we wanted and surprise a lot of people at the draft. And we like the guys that we took there last year. We're really extremely excited about where they play out.
This year, you have 7 picks in the first 3 rounds, which is just a lot, obviously. What is your approach to having that many picks in the first 3?
Well, you definitely have an advantage to plan out who you're going to get, and multiple swings. I think, at this point, we do a lot of studies about what teams have done wrong in the rebuild and what teams have done right. And one of the things that, we've learned, if you just keep your picks and you keep swinging, good things are going to pay off. And I really like our scouting staff, and I believe in the job they've done. And you can see that now as our picks start to mature, the Gunthers and the Mosers and all these guys are coming through, the Josh Doans of the world and the Lamroos and the Geekies. Now they're all taking shape, and people can see what our scouting staff has done. So I have a really good. I like the draft. I think there's some depth in the draft, and I believe in our staff. If we just keep, taking swings with our pick, we're going to find our players.
Bill, this is the thing I think everyone wants to know. Will you continue to wear matching suits at the draft this year?
Well, there's only one way to find that. You'll have to tune into the draft day.
Okay, and what are the odds you can give us a hint?
Yeah.
On maybe the color scheme?
Craig, screw with Craig finding out their draft pick. I want Craig boots on the ground finding out their suits.
I want to leak the suit color.
Taylor.
That's an interesting thing. People are always wondering, like, are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to change now that you're Utah? I mean, you have to wait. It's I can't reveal any of that. That's going to be the excitement of draft day. What goes on. Do they all show up in different suits?
It's like, or they reveal the name and logo of Utah
with the suits.
I mean, listen.
Oh, we got all kinds of ideas. We're going
to start some conspiracies.
We got time. So, Bill, you talked about it a little bit already. You talked about the rebuild, and right after the draft, you're going right to free agency. Like within days, you've got to be ready to switch gears from kids to veterans, and you got to look at free agency. Has your plan or this ownership group's plan changed in regards to the rebuild now that you're maybe a new budget and with different spending restraints?
Well, you certainly have some different options now, but I think one of the main things is that we've tried to stick to is keep drafting. Listen, that's how you're going to build a championship. If you look at the number one centers, the number one Ds, all the top end players that are playing at this point in time in the year, they're all drafted. So we can't get away from drafting. We've got to continue to draft. When we get into free agency, there's deals that we can do that can enhance our young players, but we can't make Logan Cooley or Dylan Guenther any older than they are. So the rebuild, no matter how you slice it, is still in the fourth year. We can enhance some of our players by some of the players that we can find in free agency, but it also can, you can make a lot of mistakes on free agency day if you get locked into the wrong player for 7 years. Times 8, times 9, it can hurt you down the road. And so we've still got to let our team grow naturally and organically and making sure that, that the young players continue to get better. We want to do that by putting good players around them, but not necessarily getting into the point where we're filling up our entire salary cap with long-term players.
I want to talk about the RFAs, Hayton, Dursey, JJ Moser, Valimaki. Has there been any progress with those guys, or is that kind of a wait till later in the summer thing?
Sometimes there's no deal until, time's running out on the clock. So, obviously we're continuing to work towards a deal. I have a good feeling that all those contracts are going to get done. It just takes some time and to get the deal in place that works for the player and works for the club. So we'll continue to work on that as the season, the summer moves along. But I have good confidence and good faith that those players want to play in Utah and we want them back. So I do feel we're going to get deals done.
You got players right now literally all over the world. We know your development staff and your training staff keeps tabs on everybody, but can you give us any insight how some of your players, like the big guys, how Cooley and Keller and how their summers have been so far?
Yeah, it's interesting. We try to give really good feedback when our players are walking out the door. We have a skills coach with us, an analytic coach, and we try to give them programs to go home and do in the summer, not only off the ice, but also on the ice, as far as their skills package to keep developing and keep improving. And one of the things that we look for in players and that we actually do psychological tests about is the will to improve. And that really shows up in the summer when the player comes back. And, I think our staff has done a good job acquiring those players. It's also us talking about that will to improve and go home in the summer. And, Keller's always on the ice. Hayden's always on the ice getting better. So I have a good belief in our players that they're going to put the time in with the plan to improve. And listen, we got to show up. Everybody's got to show up in camp a step bigger, stronger, and faster. And if we can do that, our team's going to take another step next year.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead?
We talked about those young players too. I talked about Cooley, Gunther, Doan, specifically those guys, and we saw how well they click together and how well this young core is really starting to develop. And I tell you what, they were rocking at the mullet watching these young kids. Do you get excited to see where this next step is for those players? Because clearly they haven't reached their ceiling yet.
No, we get really excited. Last year I think we had 6 20-goal scorers, close to 7. And we're looking to push the pace, try and hopefully make it 8 this year. If we can do that, we can, that's our team identity is we can score. And we can improve our defense and take a next step, and our goaltenders could become a little bit better, take a step. You're talking about a team that can push the pace, and take that next step to become better, hopefully to get into the, 80, 85 points in the season. That's something that we can do. It's achievable for us. That's going to take our team eventually the following year to the next step and trying to push to get in the playoffs. But I like where our team is going. I like the work that our players do in the summer. And you can really see it when they come in September. It really pays dividends, and we've got some young, hungry kids. So we got to continue, obviously, to push our group. But I like what our kids are capable of doing in the summer.
We haven't had the chance to talk to you since Connor Ingram won the Masterton. I just wanted to, get your thoughts on what that means, not only for Connor, but also the team as a whole.
Yeah, I think we're really proud of Connor. That's he's overcome some great things in his life to take steps and obviously to be a really good goaltender at this level. It's not easy, and obviously with some of the stuff he's gone through. It shows great resilience, and that's going to not only pay dividends on the ice, but also off the ice for Connor. He's a great human being, and we got a good feeling that he's going to win some bigger awards, that help us lead us to a championship. So he's got a bright future.
Bill, I want to say first, thanks so much during your busy schedule right now. I know you're trying to get this draft nailed down. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the draft, so hopefully we can spend a few more minutes chatting with you then. And then Utah's only a 10-hour drive. And so hopefully we know the PR guy there, so we're kind of hoping we get some PR passes and we can see you up there in Utah. Honestly, can't wait to see what this season brings.
Yeah, whatever you guys need, you let us know. And listen, it's a straight ahead flight. It's 1 hour. Jump on the Delta. It's a quick flight in, and you guys will love it here. And we'll certainly do everything we can to make it your home.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to chat with us, and hopefully we'll chat with you again soon. So best of luck with all the busyness over the summer, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Take care.
Well, thank you again to Utah General Manager Bill Armstrong. He literally joined us during his lunch break. 15 minutes is all we had. He was in the middle of all the scouting meetings. So we really appreciate him giving us his time during a crazy time for him.
Yeah, and now at the Combine, right? So
yeah, exactly.
A lot going on in the hockey world right now. There's no off season anymore.
There really isn't.
It's just insane.
Maybe just August.
I guess there's that cottage. We should call it cottage season. Because,
if you're from Canada, you have a cottage. It's just a thing. But yeah, it's interesting, and I know a lot of people wanted to ask us more about the move and, talk about working for the Morellos and all of that. We wanted to just focus strictly on the hockey. And again, if you're not interested in hearing about Utah, you simply don't have to listen to the episodes about Utah. We haven't even talked about Utah up until this very point.
It's a hockey podcast. Yep. It's not a Coyotes podcast anymore.
Unfortunately, the Coyotes...
See the logo?
Unfortunately, PHNX Coyotes and the Arizona Coyotes are deactivated. So we will reactivate that when the time calls for it. But before we move on, Craig and I are going to obviously get to talking about a little bit more about what Bill Armstrong's facing, not even from the draft and free agency standpoint, but from working for a new ownership group and also having different management structure that he might not be used to. But first things first, Petey, we mentioned, is on his way to Florida. He just texted us that his flight is delayed. I'm sure he would have rather. Petey seems like the guy who would rather just get behind the wheel of a car and go.
Yeah, if he's in Atlanta, so
at this point,
still a bit of a schlep to South Florida.
But
Petey, You probably didn't have a choice in this. It was probably ESPN, but direct flights, buddy.
I know, right?
Of all times, take direct flights now because the airline industry will leave you hanging as they have right now.
If it came down to it and he had to drive, there's probably plenty of Circle Ks along the way. And if you're part of the inner circle, you can save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups, 3 cents per gallon every time after that. I'm part of the inner circle. I save 3 cents every time. Plus, there's always a bunch of special offers for being a member of the inner circle. Make sure you download the Circle K app today. Join the inner circle for free. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Craig, when was the last time you visited your vault at Desert Financial Credit Union?
That's classified, Leah, but I'm there pretty often. If I'm not depositing gold bars, as you guys know, sometimes I just like to lay on my gold bars. Like to lay around.
You can trust Desert Financial with your finances. Can, That's the bottom line.
That's the truth.
Yeah, Desert Financial. Yeah, very secure. And I think the best part about Desert Financial is they're there to help serve you. That's something that you don't get from a lot of banks. A lot of, big banks there's this notion that they're quote greedy. Desert Financial, a credit union, they really care about their members. And Craig is a testament to that because he's been banking there forever.
Yeah, and service is so easy there. Basically, I can't even remember who it was from our staff saying that you lose a card, you can walk in there and you get a new one immediately. It's just little things like that where there's just greater accessibility. It just feels homier. That's what I like about it. Yeah.
Well, when you open a free checking account online, you get $200 in bonuses. You can get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. All right, Craig, let's talk a little bit more about Utah. And this is something we haven't talked about yet, even though it came out a few weeks ago, about the management structure that's going to happen in Tucson. Obviously, we know that the hockey ops and the team moved to Utah. Only the team and staff, though. That's it.
Coaches.
Don't worry about it. That's it. That's all. But we found out that Wasserman Executive Vice President and Talent and Innovation Chris Armstrong, what a title, I stumbled over it, will be an alternate governor and the top hockey decision maker with Utah. Chris Armstrong, no relation to Bill Armstrong, was one of the advisors to Ryan Smith during the acquisition of the Utah franchise as part of the three-way transaction with the NHL, the Coyotes, and he most recently represented Penguins president of hockey ops and GM Kyle Dubas during his negotiations with the Maple Leafs. So coming from the agency world, interesting move. What's your take?
I know a lot of people were freaking out about this, like, oh, does this mean Bill Armstrong's in trouble? No. If you look around the structure of multiple other NHL clubs, they have this position. In fact, there was discussion about having it here in Arizona, basically like a president of hockey operations, right? And I've been told that Chris Armstrong is going to be more, focusing on processes and business side, those sorts of things. I don't expect Chris Armstrong to meddle much in draft and development and those sorts of things. If he does, that's a problem. I'll just say that right now because he has no business in that area. There are really good people on that side with the Utah hockey franchise. But this is it's like a liaison between ownership and management, right? It's often, and it's an advisor. It's a person who can, like I said, talk processes. Bill Armstrong knows what he's doing in the draft. They've obviously shown they know what they're doing with development, with the hiring of their staff led by Lee Stempniak. All that's good. But it's still good to have a sounding board. And if ownership has questions, they have, like I said, there's a liaison there. This is becoming, it already has become normal structure with NHL clubs. So the fact that Utah has gone this route doesn't mean Bill Armstrong's in trouble. It just means that they want to assume a sort of organizational structure that a lot of teams think makes sense. Why didn't it happen here? That's an interesting question for a couple reasons. Like, first off, I'm not sure they were going to spend the money on the salary. Secondly, I honestly think Bill was a little bit resistant to this, but probably are they going to put the right person in place? He had some senior advisors that he really trusted, like Larry Plow, of course. He brought in John Ferguson Jr., so he had some people around him. But I think this puts someone in place for Ryan Smith who wasn't a Bill Armstrong hire, right? Yeah. So they're not beholden to him. And that's probably an important part of management structure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For me, it's, Ryan Smith, based on everything that I see, how everything's unfolding, I truly believe deep in my soul that this was kind of thrown in his lap in the timeline that Gary Bettman publicly stated, because there's a lot of chaos going on. We'll talk more about that in a second, as far as just building the plane while flying it, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But originally he wanted an expansion team, and an expansion team he could have built in his own way. Instead, he acquired the hockey side of the Coyotes, and he didn't really get a say in what he was given. Granted, he inherited, I think, an up and coming product, and there's a lot to like, as many of you Coyotes fans watching this know, because we spent the last 3 years looking toward the future, and that's part of the reason why the move hurt so much. But this move gets somebody who Ryan Smith knows into hockey, and so he can have a little bit more, not control, because I don't think Ryan Smith is a self-proclaimed hockey expert by any means, but just somebody that he knows and he trusts to be in that role.
Checks and balances, right?
Exactly.
You need that.
Exactly. Well, one other thing that we kind of alluded to with Bill Armstrong was, and this is another thing that's been discussed with the move to Utah and a new ownership, is Bill Armstrong had some restrictions financially here in Arizona under Alex Meruelo. We saw it a lot at the trade deadline this year, when they couldn't retain salary to get higher draft picks. You know, they only got 6th, 7th round picks at the trade deadline this year because, you know, there was a restriction financially. And something that we've heard about Ryan Smith so far is, he said, anything you need, I'll pay. We want to do that, sure. And granted, it's still it's the honeymoon phase, so we'll see how all of that sustains. But it seems like at this point in time that Ryan Smith is willing to spend more than Alex Meruelo, which brings us to free agency.
Yeah.
The Utah team obviously has a ton of cap room available, and
what's their cap number?
I think it's 40 million or something like that.
So they have to just get to the cap floor.
Yeah,
a lot of work.
And in the past few years, and obviously a part of this has to do with the fact that it's a rebuilding team, so you're not going to spend to the cap on a rebuilding team. But you also had an ownership group who wasn't prepared to spend to the cap ceiling. What happens now? Bill Armstrong mentioned it. It's year 4 of the rebuild. No matter how you shake it out, how do you approach this? Because all of a sudden you hear, okay, new ownership, more money.
Yep.
Utah's going to go after Steven Stamkos, and they're going to trade for Mitch Martin. Like, there's all of these, narratives now coming out because there's more flexibility financially.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, cross Mitch Marner off. That's not happening. That makes no sense when you look at the contract situation. Mitch Marner's not coming to Utah. That doesn't make sense from a Utah standpoint. But I want to back up for a moment that leads us into this other discussion. Because Bill Armstrong has someone overseeing him now in hockey ops, when he first came on board, and I'm not saying he ever laid off, because he honestly didn't, but I think he's going to be dialed in now. He's got someone to impress, right? He's got new bosses to impress. So this entire hockey ops staff is probably going to be locked in, and I think that's going to be to the benefit of Utah. Not that they have slacked off in any respect over the 3 years in Arizona, but it's just going to keep them on this, full court pressure kind of attitude that they've taken, and that's probably really going to help this team complete the rebuild. As far as spending money in free agency, yes, they have to get to the cap floor. Like, people say, well, you're going to be big players in free agency simply because you have to get to the cap floor. It means you do have to spend a lot of money. But be careful with the terminology there. I don't think Bill wants to change his approach just because he's moved to a new market. If he does, that's a bad sign, honestly, because that means ownership is getting involved in places they shouldn't get involved and making the same mistakes that were made here that we have talked about so many times, repeatedly, rushing the rebuild. You don't go get a Mitch Marner. You don't get those kinds of players because you're not ready for that. This team is not ready to be a contender. As Bill said, this is year 4 of the rebuild. There's still time. Like, we've talked about this, like maybe it might be 3 years down the road where you can start really saying, okay, here they come. But it's certainly at least another year out before you're going to be a playoff team. I don't think this team makes the playoffs next season either. I really don't think that they're going to do that. If they make the mistake of rushing it and bringing in pieces that hurt them long term, watch out, because you might have a short-term gain and you might hurt yourself in the long term. What I think Bill really wants to do in free agency is, if he's going to bring guys in, he's going to have to. He's already talked to us about revamping this blue line, which has nobody signed for next season. Some of the RFAs will be back, but I think they'll make some moves there to try and improve the blue line. I could see him making a trade like Sean Durzi, where he sees an up-and-coming player, where he can use some of those draft assets or existing prospects to augment the blue line. I could see him signing free agents on shorter-term contracts, but he's not going to go after those big-ticket items yet. It doesn't make sense. I know people would probably like them to make the playoffs in the first season. It helps turn on a fan base, but in the long term, again, and we've seen it throughout their time here, you need to stay committed to the rebuild. You can't make that mistake. Otherwise, you're going to hurt yourself. And I think that's Bill's attitude right now. I don't think he wants to go after those big ticket items just yet.
Yeah, and that's something that he said in the interview as well, that a lot of teams can make mistakes in free agencies, get locked into things that are going to hurt you down the road. It doesn't seem like, I think Bill Armstrong is very committed to the rebuild and committed to staying on track. It will just be interesting to see, because will Ryan Smith feel the pressure of wanting to deliver, an A-plus product to the fans right away? I don't know. I don't know Ryan Smith. I've never spoken to him. Who knows? He might just be so overwhelmed right now that he's saying hands off, like, you guys got the hockey thing. I'll figure out everything else. And then after this season, we can take a deep breath and reevaluate. But he also might say we need to make a splat. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny. I was on Utah radio this morning. It's funny, like the national perspective is, oh, this is a great move for the NHL. Home run with Ryan Smith. It's all rainbows and roses, right? And then you start to talk to some of the people locally. We had Ryan Miller on a while back, and it's a little different perspective. When this move was announced, one of the radio hosts that I was on today was saying, it was funny to watch the reaction on social media, people saying to Ryan Smith, you already have two teams and they both suck. Can you fix those first before you go collecting another team? So there's a little bit of frustration with what's happening with the teams that he already owns. Maybe he will want to make a big splash, like you said, because this team might be maybe a little closer to being a playoff team. But again, if he does, that's a mistake, and you don't want your ownership doing that. Stay in your lane. You don't know hockey ops. Stay in your lane. Yep.
So we'll have to wait and see how everything goes. It will be a very interesting offseason for Utah with new ownership. But, we talk about the rainbows and butterflies. You hear things like the team received more than 34,000 season ticket deposits, and that all sounds great. And then you see the map of the arena, Craig. So we're going to take a look at the Delta Center map, which in a press release earlier this week, they said it can accommodate up to 16,000 fans. That will be for select games during the first NHL season. 10,000 seats with unobstructed views.
10,000.
So
that's less than America West Arena.
Yeah. So we could take a look at the map here. And if you're listening on audio, we can tweet this out. But the ends here, those grayed areas, those are the obstructed view seats. And as part of the press release as well, it said that obstructed view seats starting at $19. So definitely affordable to get in.
Yeah, look, if you don't mind that experience, you just want to be in the experience and see some of the game.
Yeah. And listen, 10,000 is more than 4,600.
Yes,
so
it is.
I think at this point, it's like you'll take what you can get.
It's funny. Like, I don't know if you saw some of the comments. There were people like, oh, it's even more obstructed than that. Like some of the seats in the upper bowl are obstructed that they're saying are not obstructed. I don't know. I haven't been in the place. I would like to be in the place. I want to go to a game there and really get a feel for what the atmosphere is like. I just, listen, I've told you guys this before. I have been in this building because I covered the NBA. I know they did some renovations, but I understand the construction of the bowl. It's not ideal for hockey, and whatever incursions they make, whatever the renovations look like, they got their work cut out for them to make this a really good NHL arena. And again, it's one of the oldest arenas in the NHL, third oldest, right, in the NHL, right when it comes online. So there's a lot here, but I don't blame Ryan Smith for this. This was oh crap, really? I got to take a team. I want to do expansion. Can't we do expansion? Yeah. No, we're going to give you this team instead. So he's been put behind the 8 ball with a lot of things, and they're trying to make it happen. It's going to be a rough ride, I think, for a season for Utah hockey. But maybe that's not a bad thing because, as I said, they're not quite ready for prime time anyway. So, get things worked out in year one.
It is sort of the MO of this group already, just like always the underdog, always overcoming adversity. But to me, all of this once again just goes to show how desperate the NHL was to get out from under the situation that they were in with Morello, the Coyotes, and Mullet Arena, and a lack of an arena solution. So for all of the the disastrous things that we've talked about, or the things that could become disasters, that was still worth the risk to the NHL. So that's that's also interesting.
Sure is.
To weigh. Another part of this that they're building as they're flying the plane is branding. And they've come out and said that year one, there won't be a team name. They're just going to go with Utah Hockey. For now, our friend Ryan Miller, who had been on the show before, put out this tweet with applications for trademarks been filed for 8 logos for the Utah Hockey Club. And these are them. Again, if you're listening on audio, you can take a look at Miller J. Ryan on Twitter. So we got the baby blue. Mm-hmm. We got some plain text. And what do you think, Craig?
Wow. They're boring. They're unbelievably boring. That's what I think.
Yeah.
At least go with the state shape. I don't know. I don't like the color.
Fine.
I don't like anything about it.
And it's so funny because this came out. I just, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's a pretty color, because I just like the color baby blue. But the more I looked at it, the more I could have designed that in Photoshop or Microsoft Paint. It just felt like there wasn't a lot of effort put in. Then you see the Utah Jazz rebrand come out yesterday, and it's unbelievable. The mountains and the purple. And then you see Ryan Smith actually tweeted all of the different patterns on his desk on sweaters and shirts. And I thought, okay, if they go on that track for branding the hockey team, I think it's good. Yeah. And maybe they just want to be unremarkable for year one. Maybe that's their goal. Maybe they go unremarkable so that when they do reveal the name and logo, everyone's like, this is so great, because
it's a dramatic shift from how horrible it was.
Exactly. But my favorite part, Danielle, if we can just pull up one more time the Utah logo, the one that says Utah all written out. Yeah, that works. The slant and the H. Very subtle to me. If you zoomed in on that and put 2 eyes, it's like the slanty smiley face. It's like, I'm a little unsure about how I feel about, that's when I see the slant and the H, it's like, it comes off like that slanted smiley emoji. It's like, I don't know. We're fine. Those are our thoughts on the Utah colors. Let us know in the chat what you guys think about what they've put out so far.
You know what my least favorite part of all of it is?
What?
We go from the best logo in all of sports to this.
Yeah.
To that. Come on.
Yeah. I know. It's tragic. God, the knife just twists more and more every time you talk about it. But that's what we're looking at for now as far as the colors. The names. Today, they announced the final 6 names in the running for this hockey team. And you can only vote for one this time around. The names that remain are the Utah Blizzard, the Utah Hockey Club, the Utah Mammoth, Utah Outlaws, Utah Venom, and Utah Yeti.
They're missing S's on a lot of those names.
I hate singular names.
So do I. Hate them with a passion. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, what do you call a player? I'm a Utah Yeti.
I'm a Blizzard.
Yeah, I'm a Blizzard. Yeah, like what?
Isn't Yeti technically plural though?
I don't think it is actually.
Wouldn't be the plural of Yeti be Yetis?
I think it is Yetis.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with Yetis, although I do worry about how close it is to the Colorado Avalanche with that, footprint patch, that the NHL might have something to say about that. I don't know.
Lots of great partnership opportunities with the brand Yeti.
Yeah.
No free ads.
Mammoths I like too. I mean, Mammoths is pretty cool.
But why would you not say Mammoths?
Mammoths, right.
But
just
why
put an S on the end.
Yeah, why is it Mammoth?
Singular. We're going to do a show at some point on singular nicknames. We might bring Espo in.
Mammoths? Because mammoths, that was a breed, that was an animal. Like, there were multiple mammoths on this earth. Not mammoth. I don't know.
I don't like any of them. Utah, I'm speaking directly to you for a moment, okay? You brought the Jazz in. They relocated. You didn't change the name. Nobody looks at Salt Lake City and thinks Jazz. No, change the name. What were you doing? There's no history there. No one cares about the Jazz's history. You should have rebranded entirely And while you were at it, you should have made it a plural nickname. Don't make another mistake with another professional team. Just put an S on the end of it. I'm begging you. Don't make this mistake again.
Oh boy. Well, we will see how this all unfolds. You can vote now for the remaining, for your favorite of those remaining 6. I mean, Outlaws is the only one with the S, but I don't know if I like it.
I don't like Outlaws either.
I don't know. I mean, I guess
of all places.
Yeah, like when you think of the Old West, you don't think Utah.
Like
No,
Outlaws
come
would
on.
work. Like Outlaws would work better here, and Coyotes would work in Utah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
work here,
it's
work
true.
in Texas,
If we
we
just
work in
switch
it,
Nevada.
it
It
would
doesn't
work,
work
but-
in Utah. You don't think of Outlaws
No.
in Utah.
it's not what I think about at all. Well, it will be very interesting to follow along. I think if they go with Hockey Club, just like Petey has his whole who cares thing, and then it became HK, the Utah Hockey Club, HK,
That's
club
perfect.
with a K, the Utah HKs. That's my pitch. I don't know. Ryan Smith, if you're listening, that's my pitch.
How do you feel about Commanders?
Oh, God. Oh, my
boy.
goodness.
The
Okay.
Guardians.
The Guardians. There
yeah,
you go.
there's some bad ones out there. All right. Well, we'll move on to talk about the Tucson Roadrunners and the Stanley Cup Final here in just a moment. But first of all, 1 week from today, we are taking over Footprint Center for the PHNX Mercury takeover and pregame party. It's going to be a blast. If you haven't been out to a Mercury game this season, what are you doing? Get inside in the cool, watch some amazing live sports and the Mercury. And if you join us next week, you get the pregame party with food and drink included, lower level tickets to the Mercury game with the diehards, immaculate vibes, and the tickets are flying off the shelves. So make sure you grab yours now. It's going to be a blast. Go phnx.com/events to get your tickets. If I wasn't going out of town that day, I would 100% be going because I have not been to a Mercury game yet this season. I really want to go. So great opportunity to go watch some live sports this summer.
Where are you going, Leah?
I'm going to Hawaii, Craig.
There you go.
Yes. Going to Hawaii. Yes. Yes. Well,
Is Johnny Venerable back from Hawaii
I'll
yet?
tell you
Or
so-
did
he
move
is.
there? Did he
he
move
is.
there?
I'll tell you
Okay.
someone who's not flying to Hawaii right
Who's it?
now. It's Petey.
Oh, boy.
He's actually at his layover and he's checking in with us. So let's bring him in
Okay.
from Atlanta. Oh, in front of the Atlanta
Look
Hawks
at that.
logo. Petey
Yeah.
live from the
Hawks.
Atlanta airport. How are we doing?
Hawks with an S, by the way. Hawks.
Yes. Thank you.
They did it right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is my second flight of the day on my layover, and I'm 1 out of 2 on delays. So I made the first flight out of Arizona. Everything was great, but now I'm in Atlanta, and I'm going to be in Atlanta for a little bit. My flight to Florida has been delayed. So I didn't know if it was Craig, and I knew I was calling Craig, and I was calling into Craig, if that's what created this. But everything was smooth until I started thinking about the PHNX show, and then here it's falling apart.
There it is.
Oh, well. Oh, well.
So what are you going to
One
do on your
step closer.
layover? Just walk around
Well,
nonstop?
No, I'm going to eat. I'm going to eat really, and not McDonald's. I'm P.F. Chang's today. So I'm going to sit down, have
Okay.
a real meal, little chicken and broccoli, I think, today. I got time. Just
Yeah.
enjoy the beautiful Atlanta airport. If you've had the opportunity to swing through, it's very busy at the Atlanta airport, and it's not disappointing today because it's very, very, very busy. But we're talking hockey, and I watched a lot of hockey on the plane, and there'll be some hockey content coming out either on my Twitter or on our YouTube channel over the next 24 hours. So keep a lookout.
Petey, when you eat in an airport, are you eating while you're walking? Because I know you never stop moving.
It depends. It depends. Like I did have breakfast at the Phoenix airport. I stood up. I don't sit, but when I go to PF Chang's, I'm assuming I'm going to sit at the bar because we're going to slow things down a little bit here. And I do not drink at the airport. And I know a lot of people go to the bars. I don't drink at an airport. Like I don't on my layovers. I don't have a beer or two. I'll be drinking water. I know it disappoints some people, but yes, I've put on a lot of miles already. Like I've been. This airport's huge, but I've been from the A to the T to the B terminals. Yeah, so I'm going to get my miles in before I get to lovely Fort Lauderdale, Florida by the end of the day. I hope. That's the plan.
Shelby in the chat's giving advice. Go to Terminal ERF. It's larger. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm on A or T. ERF, I imagine, is the other way. See, that's the kind of advice I need here. Hopefully I make it to Florida because the games in 48 hours. So I'd like to get there before then, and hopefully bump into Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I put some feelers out, and hopefully can bump into him and see if we can connect with an old Coyote over here.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, like Petey mentioned, we're going to have Petey at the Playoffs content on our Twitter, on our YouTube channel, and hopefully Petey will get to chat with some people while he's either in Florida or Edmonton. So stay tuned for that on our PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Petey, I know that you're so close to Florida. This, like, flying across the U.S., fine. How excited are you to fly to Edmonton in a couple days?
I'm not because we all talked about how the distance is and all that already, but I have to go through Denver, which is another airport that is hit or miss on flights being delayed. And I'm not only doing that, but I'm jumping on an Air Canada flight, and you two can attest to how well Air Canada operates out of Denver. So I'm not as optimistic about my 13-hour travel day coming up in a few days. The weather will be nice, I guess, right? 40s and 50s. Is that nice? I mean, I guess.
I mean, it's 110 here today, so.
Yeah, it's hot here today.
Yeah,
buddy.
so I guess I'll take 40, 50s. I am concerned, and we'll see about the hockey. I know that, I still think Florida is the much better team, and I know you guys are going to talk about the matchup here again, but Florida's a better team. And Edmonton is going to have to ride on Connor McDavid's wings to get through this series with wins. I don't know where they're going to find him right now against Florida. So we'll see. Maybe it's better on ice than it is on paper.
Petey, if Air Canada loses, if you lose air pressure in the plane and they tell you don't panic, I'd still panic. Yeah, I'd still panic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And by the way, so 7 games would be ideal too. So I could travel back and forth. By the way, and I told this to Leah,
horrible.
If you look at the calendar, the game is on the 24th of June.
Game 7
scheduled 24th. And that means I would fly back to Phoenix on the 25th from Florida. You know what we're doing on the 26th? Oh, yeah, I'm going to the draft. So I'll be home long enough to wash my underwear and then get back on the road to Las Vegas.
Let me ask you this.
My wife is going to be thrilled. Yes.
Would you be in favor of a 2-3-2 format?
Yes.
Yeah. I like it too.
I think I know, you do it in other sports. I do think the 2-1-1-1 is the most fair. Because if you're the lower seed team and you can get a split and then go home for 3 games, you have a huge advantage. But travel is ridiculous, especially in a series like this, where travel is going to impact players. Like, I don't care. I know there's an extra day off in between 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's extra days on those travel days, but still, man, players are going to get worn out. That's hard. It's hard to travel that many time zones across that many miles, and I think it's going to affect the players. So I do see there being less travel would be ideal in a situation like this. And same when you're looking at baseball going from LA to New York, those cross-country flights. It wears people down, and it's expensive. And it's not just the players. It's everybody, the media, the staffs. Everybody's got to get back and forth across the country. So, and fans. I'm sure I'll bump into some fans. None here so far in Atlanta. Heading to the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I imagine by the time we get from Florida to Edmonton, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of people traversing across North America.
All right. Well, Petey, safe travels. Everybody, you can follow along with him at SPeters Hockey on Twitter, and we'll be touching base with you again soon.
Fantastic, guys. I have total FOMO that you guys are there doing that, and I'm doing this here. I'm not a big traveler. Don't love it.
Yeah,
anyway, thanks for having me on, guys.
All right.
We will talk to you real soon.
Bye.
Safe travels, Petey. Bye-bye.
Oh, boy. Yeah. To be stuck in the Atlanta airport right now, I don't know. Should we talk about the Stanley Cup Final next, since we kind of left off on it? Before we do, it's Florida, Edmonton. It's the Rats versus the
Are we?
The Oil.
Okay.
And I think we should introduce your new friend.
Via the video?
Yes. So let's take a look at Craig's new friend.
Come on, Sasha. Come on. Don't be afraid of Danielle. Danielle won't hurt you. You need to meet Damon. Damon's your friend. Come on. Oh, don't hide, Sasha. Sasha, come on out. All right, come meet Danielle, okay? Can you meet Danielle? Come on. I promise Danielle won't hurt you. Danielle. This is Sasha.
Hi, Sasha.
Sasha knows that you're an Oilers fan. Can you assure Sasha that everything's going to be okay on the show?
Everything's fine. We're good. We're friends.
Craig. Meet Sasha, Craig's
Sasha's
rat.
Sasha is my rat, and of course the Florida Panthers. For those of you who don't know this, throw plastic rats on the ice. So I got a rat of my own. Named him, named her.
It.
Can't
Named
tell.
it.
How do you tell with a rat? I don't. Okay, well, but there's Sasha Barkov, so
It. We
Okay,
named it.
They.
wow.
Them.
Hey, let's call
them.
it they. There we
Yeah.
go.
You named them
But-
Sasha.
Sasha may make an appearance on another show, especially if the Panthers beat the Oilers and deprive Canada of a cup for a 31st straight season.
By the way, I did tell everyone that if the Oilers did win the cup, that you did promise you'd come on the show and sing the Canadian national anthem.
I like the Canadian national anthem.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful anthem, so
It
I'll
is.
be here. I'll be belting it out. But I may have the alternate version if they do not. So
All right. Well, we did give our full preview in our audio only show earlier this week. If you haven't listened, you can take a listen wherever you get your podcast. But Craig, you did bring a couple of interesting tidbits to the conversation that I wanted you to go over before you give your picks for this series.
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how much Edmonton is being carried by special teams through this postseason. I asked NHL Stats and Info for a graphic of the worst 5-on-5 goal differentials of a team that has won the Stanley Cup. And I believe we have this graphic that we can pop up here.
We do. So it's interesting, and this is obviously all post lockout era. The lowest goal differentials of Stanley Cup champions, the lowest coming in 2014-15 with Chicago.
The Blackhawks. And I remember Joe Quenneville really being surprised that team won the cup. He didn't think that they sort of willed themselves to a third cup that season. But you can see these are the goal differentials for just 5-on-5 play, even strength. Edmonton right now is +1. They are decidedly mediocre at 5-on-5. But if you look at their special teams, they have the top-rated power play in the postseason and the top-rated penalty kill in the postseason. I have never seen a team carried by special teams like the Edmonton Oilers are being this postseason. Can it last, especially with Stuart Skinner in goal? I don't know, but it would be a hell of a story. And I'll say this for the Oilers. I've been saying this for a while anyway. I'm glad Connor McDavid is on this stage. We need to see Connor McDavid on the biggest stage playing for a cup. It's a really cool experience. I agree with Petey that Florida is the better team. I've been saying since like November that the Panthers are the best team I've seen all season, but I also thought the Dallas Stars were a better team than the Edmonton Oilers, and that didn't play out the way most of us thought it would play out. So I'm really intrigued by this series.
Well, you brought your rat. Danielle, we all know, is the Oilers fan of this podcast. So Danielle, I want to throw it over to you for your thoughts and predictions for this series.
Hey guys, as the only hockey expert here, as PHNX's resident hockey expert, I'll have you know I have played hockey 3 times now.
Let's go.
And yeah, I think Craig blew my mind with that stat the other day. +1 on 5-on-5 is wild.
It is.
But yeah, Oilers are a fun team, man. They're quick, they're fast, and Craig, you and I talked about it. When they go on the power play, you just expect a goal.
The McDavid goal was absurd.
It's an automatic. It's an automatic 2 goals a game. It's wild.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue to believe in my Oilers. And we're going to be hearing La Bamba a lot this series.
Oilers fan for as long as we all
For
can
as
remember.
long as I can remember, I've been an Oilman. And I will stay that way.
Oh man, plus they play good music in the arena, so there you go. Thank you, Danielle, for your 2 cents on this series. I know we all I mean, I was waiting to hear what Danielle had to say before I made my guess. I'm just kidding. Fun tidbit for
Oilers
this.
in 4.
There you go.
Oh no, we can't say that on the air.
Oh my. Okay. Fun tidbit about this series. The top 4 picks in the 2014 NHL Draft, Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, Leon Draisaitl, and Sam Bennett are all in the Stanley Cup Final. So bit of a unique little tidbit there. And one other note on the Cup Final, and then we'll get your prediction before we end the show by talking about the Tucson Roadrunners. Craig, we talked about momentum, and both these teams have a really big layoff. Florida hasn't played since last Friday, so just over a week for them. For Edmonton, it'll be just under a week. We saw it last season with the Panthers kind of losing that momentum. Granted, they were really banged up last season at this time. What are your thoughts on momentum?
I do wonder about it. It can have an impact. I thought it did with Florida last year. They lost their mojo and Vegas rolled. Vegas also had an incredible goal differential at 5-on-5, as you saw. But it's both teams, so we'll see. Like I think coaches will probably spin it on the positive side, saying we got a chance to get healthy, and health matters so much in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We also know how banged up Dallas was. That all came out eventually. Yeah. They had some devastating injuries, which probably impacted that series. But that's what I think the teams will look at the positive side of it and say we can get healthy, we can get prepared. Both teams are in the same boat, so it's not like one team has the advantage of momentum and the other doesn't. Absolutely.
Well, looking forward to the Stanley Cup Final beginning this Saturday. So it's
yay! Finally.
Yeah, seriously,
it's
this
my
whole
anniversary,
week.
By the way.
Oh, really? Happy anniversary to the Morgans.
75 years.
There you go. All right. Well, we will close things off by talking about the Tucson Roadrunners. It feels like every week we have another update on what's going on with the Roadrunners. Craig, first things first, before we get into it, the 6-game ticket package for Mullet Arena has come out. We now have the pricing for Mullet Arena for these games.
Do we have opponents?
So let's take a look. Don't think there's opponents yet.
Because I got to get approval from those teams first.
Yeah, but
schedule hasn't come out yet. So.
Yeah, but interesting to see the pricing here. The price per game as high as $142.50, which that's for the on ice loges. What most people have noted so far, pretty expensive for an AHL game. Standing room only, $17.50. You can get goal line and seats at $27.50. That seems more in the realm of affordability for AHL games. Attack Once area, $32.50.
To Tucson, what the prices were?
I didn't, because I just saw this right before we went live. I can look into that and put it out on Twitter. Yeah. But if you are interested in going to games at the Mullet to see the Roadrunners play this season, here is the pricing map. So, but these are also for 6-game. These are ticket packages. So 6-game ticket packages here.
Those do seem a bit high. I'll say that.
Yeah.
One thing I would say, like, if you still care, like I get a lot of people don't care. We had one person in the chat who really didn't like the fact that we were talking.
Not just
Utah.
one. There's been a couple.
Yeah. Well, sorry, but not sorry. If you care about the Coyotes still, that team's going to be loaded.
The Coyotes?
Utah?
Yeah. Or the players? The hockey team?
The players. If you still care about what was here, the AHL franchise is going to have an unbelievable list of prospects next season. I don't know if Josh Doan's going to be there or if he's going to make the NHL club, but they have a bunch of really talented players coming through. We talk about Connor Geekie, Mav Lam. Aside from the guys that are already there, again, if things get ironed out, Aram Duda could be there. I know that's in process right now as well. It could be a really fun team to watch if you don't mind paying those prices. Those are pretty steep prices for AHL. But again, we should do the comparison. I'd like to know what Tucson was charging down there first of all. Yeah, we'll look into that. But Craig, we have some other updates on the Roadrunners. Yeah. So what do you got for us? The Tucson City Council did in fact meet on June 4th. The amended agreement does include 30 dates with room for all 36. If all it doesn't pan out, we'll see I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think they'll play those 6 games. There is an additional year in the contract. So it'd be 3 more seasons that they would agree to. And that comes in exchange for monetary concessions. And then year-to-year renewals will be available. This hasn't been approved yet by the city council, but it's what's called a consent agenda item, which generally means it's a done deal already. This should be approved at the next council meeting on June 18th. So that's when all of this should be settled. Again, I had mentioned that the teams that they're going to play at Mullet need to approve it. The AHL told me, look, if one team says, yeah, that doesn't work for us, they'll just find another team. So this is going to go forward. This is going to be the structure that we're going to see. All right. So there you have it. It feels like this whole Roadrunners thing has unfolded very quickly, less than a month. And of course, if you need any more updates on it, Craig has the news. So even though Craig is technically our Cardinals beat writer, he still has his hands in a lot of. I still get calls. Yep. There you go. People call me for this stuff. You're the guy, Craig. So
Do you not want to be the guy anymore?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when I get sick of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one other thing before we wrap up today.
Oh, you're not going to mention my button?
Oh, your PHNX Cardinals
Brock
button?
gave me a button. I'm a member of the PHNX
Surprised
Cardinals
you didn't
podcast
wear it
now.
on your shirt
Proud
today.
member. Here it is. Can we zoom in a little more? Do we
No.
have a bigger zoom
No.
than that? Should I walk all the way to the camera?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's the PHNX
Thanks, Bo.
Cardinals logo. There you
I
go.
feel loved.
Oh my goodness. Well, exciting news. On our front, we are going to the NHL Draft. One last hurrah!
What?
It's listen. It's so close. It's at the Sphere.
Yeah.
And it's the last centralized NHL draft. And yes, this is the PHNX hockey show. So we do not have a particular team we cover. We're obviously looking at things in an Arizona lens. If you are interested in Utah, I'm sure we'll have some content with them just because we have such, a tight relationship with the Utah staff and management. So you can expect that on our PHNX Sports YouTube channel. But either way, we'll be at the draft. Boots on the ground coverage of the last centralized NHL draft over at PHNX. So look forward to that coming in just a couple weeks.
Cool. Listen, I like covering the NHL draft.
Yeah.
You know this. I've told you this. It's just a gold mine of information and sourcing. Everybody's there. It's a unique event. I hate the fact that they're talking about getting rid of it after this season. I'm still hoping. I'm holding out hope that after they go to the Sphere and see how awesome it is, they say, you know what? Maybe we should keep doing this because this is one of the few ways that the NHL is unique in a good way. We stand out from other leagues because we do this very homey feeling draft. Don't get rid of that. It's awesome. It is.
I 100% agree. And before that, of course, so that's 3 weeks and 1 day away, but 3 weeks from today is the land auction.
Oh, yes.
Craig and I will be attending. Oh, welcome to PHNX Land Development, of course.
We were so close. We were so close to going a whole show without talking about
I'm
land
sorry.
development.
It's impossible. The land auction 3 weeks away. Craig and I will be going. We will have a show after to discuss whatever unfolds at the land auction to talk about.
Too. I'll have a preview story and then something off.
Whatever happens. Yeah. So trust us. We are still covering Arizona hockey, whatever unfolds, whether it be the NHL, the Roadrunners, Arizona State we're going to be covering as their season starts to approach, and any other just great Arizona hockey stories. We've seen some Arizona-born kids go high up in the Western Hockey League draft. Yep. So there's a lot of stories here in Arizona. So we'll cover that as well as cover the NHL as a whole. So tune in weekly. We have our once a week live show on the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. We have weekly audio only episodes wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure that you subscribe wherever you do get your podcasts. But that's it for us today. Craig, anything else before we head out?
Nope. Sasha.
God.
I think Sasha has to go potty. So.
Oh, okay. We'll end the show. We do appreciate you all watching, for tuning in, whether you're watching live, listening later. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on our YouTube video if you are watching this live on YouTube. And thanks again to General Manager Bill Armstrong for joining the show. Great catching up with him. Still, it's a little strange to the Utah thing. It almost doesn't feel real yet. Like, I still feel like we're talking about the Coyotes. Again, it won't feel real until I think the puck drops in the fall. But for now, that's it from us, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter at Leah Merrill, at Craig S. Morgan, at Abrica Danielle, and you can follow the show on Twitter at PHNX_hockey. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.
We all silly like the mayor.